useful for audio. But let me stress that I'm using audio as an example, but you can use any of these features interchangeably in the same way. So you could make that mask dilate due to her motion, due to the brightness of the video, any of those things. All of them are interchangeable, and that's the really cool part. There's a million ways to do audio reactivity in ComfyUI. This is a really powerful one for your tool chest, but what makes it exceptional is that you can do it with any of those features. I might cut that out and put that at the beginning of the video, to be honest. I was pretty passionate. What's up, y'all? I'm Ryan. In this video, I'm going to be going over the Flex features system that I introduced to ComfyUI with my node pack. With these features, you'll be able to make videos react to audio, motion, time, depth, color, brightness, proximity, and MIDI is another one. Anyways, you can do some really cool stuff. You can make videos react to themselves. So you can find the workflow that I'm referencing on my Civet profile, along with much more stimulating workflows. This one that we'll be going over is just for demonstration purposes, but if you want some cooler stuff, you can get them there. Also, the GitHub page for more information on the other nodes in the node pack. But for this, I'll be focusing only on the Flex features because I use them in all of my other workflows. All right, so I'll first talk about what features are and where we get them, and then I'll talk about what we can do to them before we use them, and then I'll talk about where we can use them. All right, so what are features? Features are simply information that we get from a place that we use later. That's it. So feature sources so far include images or video, audio, and MIDI. So I'll go over an example. Let's use audio as an example. So say I get the audio from this video here, and I separate out the drums, okay? In fact, let's go ahead and isolate the kick drum for our example, okay? And then we pass that data from the kick drum to our audio feature and extractor. And every feature type has an extractor node, and what these nodes do is give us the feature, and therein lies the magic. So like audio, we could get the motion from the video, and what do we get? We get the same thing. We get a feature, and that's what makes this powerful, is that any of these features can be used in the same exact way down the line. So in the same way we could make something audio reactive, we can make it motion reactive. So I hope that makes sense. I'll go over each of these, but before I do, I just want to mention that all the nodes in my pack have this question mark, and if you click it, you'll be presented with help and some documentation specific to the node. So I won't be going into too much detail on each of the parameters because you can find the information here. So we've got different features available, and this is just what I've added. If you have any ideas for different sources, let me know in the comments, and I will see about adding them. So let's go over here. This is the same workflow. I've just messed with it a little bit to show you. So the time feature is a simple one. It just does something over time, depending on how you set it up. An area feature is another simple yet powerful one. So it will take the area of the mask that you give it, and we'll make a feature out of it. So I've got this simple example of just a square doubling in size, and you can see it gives you something that you might expect, just this spike as the area doubles. But imagine if you masked a person in a video and that person moved towards the camera, thereby increasing the area of the mask. You could then use that later to control some other node. So you could effectively tell when the person is moving closer to the camera and maybe turn the IP adapter up as they get closer to the camera. Stuff like that. So very simple but powerful. See, a depth feature. So this will take a depth map, past it right here, and we'll give you a feature out of it. Right now we're taking the average depth, but you can do it in all of these ways. So you could use your imagination, what you could accomplish with that. Maybe something similar to the previous example with the area feature. Brightness feature, simple but powerful. So imagine that, and it's calculating the brightness of the frames and normalizing it into this feature. So imagine you've got a video of a person dimming the lights and you hook the brightness up to an IP adapter, so as they lower the lights, the IP adapter strength goes up and like demons appear in the dark or something. It can be really cool. I'll probably do that example eventually. The motion feature, this is what it sounds like. You take the motion from the video and turn it into a feature. And this is useful, like say you're doing a dance video or something, you could select horizontal motion. So when the dancer moves side to side, something happens, like their mask dilates or something, but not when they jump up and down. You can get pretty granular with this stuff. I already went over audio in the other one. It looks like I had already. So here's what it looks like. We've got one kick drum here probably. Yeah, one kick drum. So simple as that. So MIDI, I haven't done an example for this yet, but it's going to be insane. So this exposes all of the data that's delivered by MIDI, and MIDI is just the standard for like computerized musics. So if you're a musician, you know what I'm talking about. This will also handle MIDI polyphonic expression. So if you know what that means, you know how incredibly powerful this is going to be. If you know what that means, hit me up so maybe we can work together and make a tutorial, because I just need a good composite, like a good song in MIDI to be able to do it. All right, so that covers what features are. They're just information that we normalize and use later, and they come from a few different places. Simple as that, simple as pie. So now that I've talked about what features are, let's move on to what you can do to them before you use them, because this can sometimes be useful. So here's yet another version of the workflow. So before we use the features, we might want to shape them or put a cap on them or just modify them in different ways. So I've made these feature mod nodes to do that. And this is the first one I made, the feature mod mixer. And I made it because I was using a kick drum, like in our example, and I got what you would expect, just spikes where the kick drum was. But what I wanted was it to rise up to the kick drum like this. So to do that, we needed to look ahead, and for that I created this node. It also does other stuff, like you can turn up the bass gain. So you'll see here, instead of the maximum value being 1, it's 1.6. You can also change like the floor and the ceiling. So the floor here I've set to 0.31, and you can see it's probably about 0.31 right there. And that actually annoyed me. This might be useful, but what if you want the minimum to still be 0? So that's why I made this node, feature rebase, where you can subtract that amount. So if we zoom in here, see the minimum is now 0. There's others here that are very useful. So oscillator just oscillates it. So what did I give it? I gave it this time feature. That's just a time feature. And then we oscillated it. So this is what happened to it. You can get some pretty abstract effects if you want. Smoothing, also very useful if you've maybe a motion feature, there's like a lot going on in your video and you get jagged lines. This can help smooth it out. This one's very cool, feature fade. So what it will do is take two features, and I've given it the kick drum and that time feature, or a different time feature. Yeah, giving it the time feature. So right now it's 50-50. This is the combination of the time feature and the kick drum feature. So this is what that graph would look like. If you go all the way to the left, it will be all feature 1. If you go all the way to the right, it will be, so that's feature 1, and here's feature 2. And then optionally, oh, looks like I inverted it. That's why it didn't look like I expected. But, and then optionally, and this is stupid, you can control it with another feature. You can control this fader with another feature. So if you want to blend brightness and depth, for instance, but only do it, but change that value on the kick drum, you can do that here. So this will give you some cool effects. Like with the time and the kick drum example that I'm using here, you could have it slope up over time, but so get stronger and stronger and stronger over time, but still give you some reactivity to the kick drum as it gets stronger over time. So with all these nodes here, you can, it further amplifies what you can do with these features. All right, so now that I've talked about what features are, what we can do to them before we use them, I'm going to talk about what we use them on, and I'll call these targets. So for now, we've got 3 targets: masks, images, and IP adapters. So let's start with the masks. So you already know what a feature is. The feature pipe is simply information that we need to do these calculations, like the frame rate, the number of frames, the size of the image, stuff like that. And it's just easier to do it in one noodle rather than have those same settings in every single node down the line. So it takes the feature and the feature pipe, and in this case, it's taking masks because that's what we are going to modulate. I'm passing these masks into it, just for example. And I'll switch to another tab to show you some of the output from these, but I'll just go over them briefly here. So you can do lots of things to a mask. You can morph a mask, and there's different ways that you can morph a mask. You can dilate it, make it grow. You can erode it, make it shrink, open or close it, etc. So in addition to morphing, you can do other stuff like warping. This will, you know what warping does. You can do math on them. So this is like a mask composite node, but controlled by a feature. So if we did subtract and we gave it this woman dancing and then masks of particles from my particle simulations, you could then on the kick drum subtract the particles from the mask of the woman. You could achieve something pretty cool. Transform will just move it around. Opacity will change the opacity of the mask, which can be useful for things that are controlled by mask opacity, which is very sweet. So yeah, let me tab over and show you some of the outputs now. So this is dilate. Very useful for audio. But let me stress that I'm using audio as an example, but you can use any of these features interchangeably in the same way. So you could make that mask dilate due to her motion, due to the brightness of the video, any of those things. All of them are interchangeable, and that's the really cool part. There's a million ways to do audio reactivity in ComfyUI. This is a really powerful one for your tool chest, but what makes it exceptional is that you can do it with any of those features. I might cut that out and put that at the beginning of the video, to be honest. That was pretty passionate. All right, so here's Voronoi noise, and I want to give a shout out to FAI for this node here. I used his Voronoi noise class, and I appreciate that. It works beautifully. He made a really great example with my nodes that I'll talk about later. And for that matter, let's give a shout out to my boy Syncratic. I made this node at his request. Likewise with the binary node that I'll talk about next. So this is the Voronoi noise output, and there's a million different outputs that you can get from it if you just tweak the parameters of the node. This is just one of them. So then if we pass this to sometimes you do not want to work with grayscale masks, you only want binary. So we pass this into the flex mask binary node, and this is the output. And you can see the threshold is being modulated here for what is black and what is white. So you can get some really cool effects. This is wave propagation, and this was an accident. I was trying to do something else, and this is what happened. So I kept it in there because it's kind of cool. I don't, you can imagine what you might be able to do with this. We'll see. Here's emanating rings, which I think is very cool. You tweak the parameters of this node just a little, and you get drastically different effects. Okay, so I just showed you 4 of the mask targets. There are 11. So yeah, they can all be used in combination. So I showed you some of the abstract ones here because they're kind of funky, but you use your imagination and let us know what you come up with. So now that I've talked about the masks, let's move on to another target, which is images. So we already know what features and feature pipes are. The only difference here between the masks and the images is that we're passing in an image to modulate instead of a mask. Pretty simple. So you can use this to not only modulate your images before maybe you sample them, but also after to get some cool effects, or independent of diffusion models entirely. You could use this in some sort of post-processing capacity for your videos. So this will be more quick to explain because we already know what features will do. So these are just various different effects that you can apply based on features. Let's go over, I'll show you a couple of example outputs. So this is chromatic aberration. And again, that workflow that FAI made. All right, so this is some example output from FAI's workflow, and it's just an incredible workflow, extremely creative. He demonstrated a ton of the ways that you could use my nodes, and in some really creative ways that I would never have thought of. For instance, these 2 extra guys here are from the chromatic aberration. So it split them into 3 colors, and then he masked all 3 colors and made these extra guys. Also, you can see the trail forming behind him. That's from my temporal masks, which I didn't go over here. I'll have to do another tutorial, but I'll see if it'll let me link to this workflow in the description because it is incredible. This is Pixelate. See that it pixelates more on the kick drum. This is Kaleidoscope. So if you want, this can help you make some music visualizers. And this is Glitch, I think. Yeah, it's Glitch. So all of these have different like combinations that you can get. You can get just wildly different results by tweaking these parameters in these nodes. So that covers masks and images. So now that we've covered masks and images, let's go ahead and cover the IP adapters, or the external features. So right now, IP adapter is the only external target of my feature system. I did some work on control nets as well, but this will control the weight of an IP adapter. So this, after this, it just goes directly to the built-in nodes that Matteo made. This is one of his nodes. So it's this conversion that I've added here from my feature to a weight strategy. And I'll do more work on external features going forward, but I don't know what architectural changes, if any, are going to take place because of the introduction of Flux. So as soon as that becomes a little bit more clear and some video capability is released, I'll do more work on external stuff. So it won't be limited to just my nodes that you can modulate. I'll add more things like this. So speaking of Flux, apart from this IP adapter, which I'm not sure about, all of the other stuff is independent of the underlying model. So when video is released for Flux, this is going to be insane, and all of it will work just the same. Okay, so I talked about what features are, where we get them, what we can do to the features before we use them, and then what we can use them on and how. I hope that this made sense, and I hope that I conveyed how powerful this node pack and this Flex feature system can be. I hope that some people find this and have fun with it and make some cool stuff. So if you want more tutorials like this, or tutorials on anything else, especially to do with ComfyUI, I suppose, but anything else, just let me know in the comments. I'm having fun doing this, so I'd love to do more. If you want more workflows of mine, more demonstrations, just check the Civet profile for those. Give me a star on GitHub and check out the other nodes that are available. I'll do some more tutorials on my nodes for sure. So also subscribe here, obviously. That should be primary focus, I guess. So anyways, thank you for watching. All right.